you were in a relationship, a domestic violent relationship, and you were the victim, if you don't mind me using that terminology.
New campaign is being launched today to raise awareness about male victims of domestic abuse.
Everyone wants to portray the image that everything's rosy, and no one walks into a networking room and's probably truly honest. And when you're told that over and over and over again, it's hard not to believe it. That there was a few times where it would really get in my head, but it was at those times that I knew that I needed to go out but leave the phone at home.
What one thing as a small business owner do we need to be focusing on right now? Hello and welcome to Leaders in Disguise, the podcast where we break the stigma surrounding mental health and well-being in leadership. I'm your host Gary Parsons, and every episode we create a space where leaders can share their authentic stories, the highs, the lows and everything in between, to encourage more open conversations about mental health in business. Today we're bringing you an important conversation as part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We'll be shining a light on an issue often left in the shadows, which is female to male domestic abuse. Our guest is Chris London, founder of 2222 Marketing, a successful social media marketing agency. Over the years, Chris has not only just built a business that's billed over £500,000 to date, but he's also set up other successful ventures. However, his journey wasn't easy. Chris spent 15 years in an abusive relationship, one that nearly broke him, but instead, he found the strength to turn his situation around and poured his energy into entrepreneurship. Today, Chris shares his story of survival, success, and the stigma that men face when talking about abuse. His courage is testament to what's possible when we embrace vulnerability and seek help. So, without further ado, let's dive into this episode. Chris, thank you very much for coming to Leaders in Disguise. Great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. We're going to jump into the episode shortly, but there's so many people that don't know you, don't know who Chris London is. Mm-hmm. I do. We've met beforehand just now. And ultimately, the topic that we're going to talk about today is really personal. So the terminology that we'll get into is domestic violence. Mm-hmm. I've already asked you if that's the right terminology. I think it is for now. And the connection between that and business is really interesting. But there's people sitting, watching and listening to this that don't know who Chris is, don't know about 2022 Marketing, your business now. So do you want to just give us a bit of a sense of who you are, where you are at the moment? Yeah,
so I run a social media marketing agency. We've been running for 6-7 years now. So it's called 2222 Marketing. We actually rebranded just at the start of this year. Beforehand, it was just under my name. But as we've expanded, sort of took my name away from it a little bit. So we do anything organic social media, paid ads across all of the main platforms. We manage about 150 pages a day for clients in a range of different industries, predominantly in the UK, but we have got international clients in America, Mexico, Holland, Portugal. And yeah, we'll work with anybody who's got a budget, whether it's a small budget of £5 a day, or if people have got large budgets with thousands of pounds. Because part of my story, and we'll probably get into it in a bit, is the fact that I started a side business with just £5 a day, and there's a lot of marketing agencies who will tell you you've got to spend thousands of pounds to get cracking really on social media, and I don't believe that, because that's not how it worked for me. I only had a small budget, and we made it work. So we work with a lot of clients and then help them scale through starting small and scaling it up.
I try to imagine 150 clients and 100 different pages and businesses that you deal with. I take it you're not fluent in Portuguese and all of these things.
No. So the Portuguese one is a golf course. So it's holidays to Portugal. So although they're based in Portugal, they're actually advertising to a UK market or American market and wanting people to travel there. And then the American clients, obviously, luckily they speak English, so so we can write that. So
probably better than us in some ways.
yeah.
So lots of different types of sectors. It sounds really interesting. And do you say 6 or 7 years has it been? That's amazing to do within that time. And you've got a small team around you that you've built.
Yeah, so we actually grew quite a bit during COVID and lockdown. Obviously, like everybody, when COVID first hit and it locked down, we lost a lot of clients, but it was just myself at that time. But then it grew quite quickly after that because the world went online. You had to, they needed a way to market. So obviously that business just flourished in that. And then we actually took on 3 members of staff that year. So going from sort of just me to employing 3 people within the year. And then it's just expanded from there, really.
Oh, great. How are you getting on with these employees? Are you a good leader? Do you think what would they say about you?
Yeah, I think. Well, they'll probably. I think they'd say that I was a good leader. Don't get me wrong. There's room for improvement with everybody. I think we could all look at ourselves and think, oh, we can do this better. And we're always going to be our own worst critic, I suppose. So. So yeah, but no, I think we're flexible with the staff. If they've got appointments or you got can I go and pick the kids up and I'll do a bit work afterwards and things like that. I think you've got to be flexible, and certainly the way the world is now after COVID and that with people working from home and the flexibility that they get. And I think if you give a little bit back as an employer, you get a bit back from the employees.
And people expect it, don't they? Now, I think that's what I certainly think has happened since 2020. That people now have this expectation that, well, everyone else has been able to work from home or have that flexibility. I was talking to somebody the other day saying it's really hard to find a job where employers will let them go and do the school run in the morning. And that surprises me in 2024. I thought there'd be so many businesses that do give the ability. So I think, but like you just said, there's an expectation there to say, come on, give us a bit of flexibility. They'll give flexibility back to you. They might work a little bit longer. And by the way, I love the humility that you gave in all of that. And so where you were like, I think I'm all right. Obviously I'm not perfect. And I think
well, they'll probably listen to this and then be like, hold on, he's nothing like that.
Oh, that's why then. Oh, yeah. No. They can listen back and go, he's lied. But that absolutely what you just said there is going, well, actually, do you know what? I don't get everything right. There were mistakes that I've made personally. I don't know about you, that I'm sure we'll get into some where things have happened and we'll reflect on them. We'll say, maybe I shouldn't have done things like that, or the business and people that we hire. I've seen so many employers where they've hired the wrong role and the person's been brilliant, but not for that particular role.
And I think as well, sometimes what might have been right a couple of years ago isn't necessarily right now. And probably one of my biggest things that I needed to work on certainly this year is making those difficult decisions sometimes, because they're not nice to make those decisions. Maybe I'm a bit of a people pleaser. I don't want to upset people. Maybe that's stuff that's happened in the past and things like that. But also in business, you've got to make decisions sometimes that are, if you don't make them, they're going to hold the business back. And that we have had to make some decisions this year where we go, okay, well that person was right 4 years ago, but they're not right for where the business is now. So, unfortunately, we have to let people go and re-recruit people into other positions, which is going to help the business move forward. And it's not easy to do.
Yeah, there's a phrase that I've had a client for many years, and a good friend of mine now, where she said it's not personal, it's business. But it really does feel personal, especially when you are a people pleaser. You emotionally taken these people into a business that was under your own name. It's a bit like the Rover's Return. Your name was above the door, and these people don't have a job or have a mortgage to pay at the end of the month, that you've suddenly gone, oh, you're not right anymore, or the role that you're doing isn't right.
And it was right. It was right 4 years ago. They were the first person that I actually took on, and they eased the workload of what I needed then. But like I say, things change, business evolves, and we're in a much different position business wise to where we were 4 years ago. And so unfortunately you have to make those decisions, and sometimes it's better for them as well. Maybe they feel like what was being asked of them was too much for what they wanted. So maybe it's the best decision for them sometimes as well. Yeah,
absolutely. It's something we all experience, definitely. You mentioned something when you were talking a moment ago about your trauma, about the experience, and I feel like we need to address the elephant in the room and talk about that. you were a victim, and let's just say this. So that's a tough word to use, so forgive me for saying that. But you were in a relationship, a domestic violent relationship, and you were the victim, if you don't mind me using that terminology. When I first started talking to you, when we first connected, and when somebody suggested that you have a chat with me and vice versa, one of the things I realized very quickly is men don't talk about domestic abuse, domestic violence, unless they're the one committing it, the one that is going out there and doing it. But you said to me very clearly, it was almost like it was this shame or a stigma that comes with it. You said to me, "Oh no, I was the man, and it was actually against me."
Yeah.
Do you want to talk me through what happened, and we'll be getting into that?
I mean, it's not. There is a stigma with regards to it, and I think if it's the other way around, it's but then when it's this way around and it's the man that's receiving it, so to speak, there's almost a bit of embarrassment from the man's side, like
masculinity, I guess that we all see traditionally.
And we know men don't talk like about anything, whether that situation or anything. So and I think someone's got to stand there and talk about it, because there'll be so many people going through that aren't talking about it, and it's okay to talk about it, and you don't get laughed out the room when you talk about it. You might think you will, but you don't. So
so just to be clear, then, so you were in a relationship with a female. You were obviously male-female relationship. You were the person that she was the one that was being domestically violent towards you then. Yeah,
and it was predominantly verbal, but words cut deep at the end of the day, especially when it's constant. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's no one's gone through life without saying something that's hurtful towards somebody, but when it's constant, and there was elements of physical in there as well, like nothing too extreme. I'm not going to say that I was in hospital and things like that, but there was elements of physical, but it was predominantly verbal. But when you're constantly told that you're not worth it, and you'll never make anything of what you're doing, and etc., and it will never work, you can't do it, and when you're told that over and over and over again, it's hard not to believe it, for starters. But yeah, and it hurts, and it's hard. So
how did that affect you as a person with other personal relationships? Actually, one of the questions I wanted to say was, how long were you in that relationship for?
Well, quite a while. Over 15 years.
Wow.
So, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't like that right from the very start. It progressively gets worse. Yeah. Until you get to a breaking point where you can't take anymore. And at the time, I was in a completely different situation with regards to work. I didn't have the social media agency at the time. I was a driving instructor. You don't actually earn a lot of money as a driving instructor, and the difficulty was that at that time I couldn't afford to leave, and it sounds daft, but you can't pay maintenance for your kids and stuff like that and then leave and on a wage where most driving instructors are probably earning 20 grand a year.
Yeah.
So I couldn't leave. So I ended up writing a course, an online course, which is called the Driving Theory Workshop, to help people. I spotted a gap in the market that, people were sort of left to their own devices to revise for theory. There's an app, off you go. But, more people fail on a day-to-day basis than pass. So there was a gap in the market. I used to teach it face-to-face. So I thought, let's put it online. And during that time, it was, why are you wasting your time doing this? This is never going to work. You'll never make this work, blah, blah, blah. And, constant digs and put downs, in front of the kids and stuff. So,
of course, because you had to,
yeah. So my son was a lot younger. He was only sort of 1. My daughter was a bit older, so she sort of understood what was going on. Well, not understood what was going on, but could see that there was disruption, shall we say. But yeah, that I used it as a bit of a driver. I actually, so I self-taught myself Facebook ads basically to sell this course. And I used to sleep in the same room as my son slept in. So I'd put him to bed, and he'd go to bed a lot earlier. And I used to think, well, I'll go to bed as well. So I used to stay sat in that room, and obviously you can't have the lights on because he was asleep. And so I used to sit in a dark room reading about Facebook ads. And I did that for months and months. And I self-taught myself, and I didn't have a lot of budget. Like I said, so I put £5 a day down, learnt in the evening, put it into practice the next day, left it to run, and it slowly built up. And if it wasn't for that course, one, I wouldn't be where I am now with regards to social media agency, but two, I wouldn't be where I am now, as in I don't think I'd have left, because I wouldn't have gone back to my parents. No disrespect to them, but I wouldn't. And I just genuinely couldn't afford to leave. And you never know, because things have been getting worse and worse and worse over time. Like how, where would that have stopped? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I'm just hearing you say that you would, you wouldn't go back to your parents. So I know there's always that stigma that comes with that, going, I don't want to have to move back home. I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards. But I can hear that you did find strength in that, though. You ultimately found some strength to say, there's an opportunity here at a point where, let's face it, people will have had no mental capacity to think about anything else because they've been hearing all of these negative thoughts. They're taking on these negative thoughts, and I'm trying to compare it to times in my life where I've been sat there and I've started to hear my own negative thoughts, and other people have kind of tried to validate them as well. And I know that I haven't really had the energy to want to go and do anything. All I want to do is go and hide, take myself to bed early, go and just hide from the world. How did you find the strength to find the opportunity?
I actually found it harder once I'd left, if I'm completely honest. So beforehand, the driving force was, I'm going to prove you wrong. And it was when I left that's when I completely lost the motivation. Because to sort of, it's like I say, it was very much I'm going to prove you wrong. I can do it. And we did. We scaled it up to, it was doing about $4 or $5 grand a month at this point and bear in mind, as a driving instructor, like I say, you do 20 grand a year. And there's no fuel or anything like that. At its peak, we were doing 30,000 we were getting 30,000 messages a month. And I was answering all of those,
whilst being a driving instructor.
Don't get me wrong, I cut the hours, not while I was driving.
I was going to say,
but yeah, it was when I made that decision to leave, and you leave, and you just think, I've lost everything. I've gone from having my family, my kids. You're walking out on your kids at the end of the day, and there's nothing harder than that. And suddenly you're in a flat, all by yourself, 5 days a week, bar the 2 days you've got the kids. I moved to Nottingham, so I was in a different county to where I'd lived. And you just feel alone. And that's when I lost my motivation. I lost, I couldn't be bothered. And that was the hardest point. And I get that the domestic violence stuff was awful.
Yeah.
But I still had my kids there. They were with me, and do you know what I mean? I had that motivation.
I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, afterwards, and it was months afterwards, I just had no motivation to certainly do anything proactive with regards to business. It was purely reactive, and I think I said to you earlier that if it wasn't for Facebook ads running, I wouldn't have had a business left, because I just, people were messaging in, so I would reply to them because, people are messaging me, so I will. But I had no ambition to go and find new ways to market it or increase the ad spend or do anything. And then you just, it was very, it obviously started to decline a little bit because, there's only so much you can be reactive and that, but it sort of kept me afloat. You see the bank balance starting to go down a little bit, and you're thinking, hold on, the bank balance has gone down. I'm sat in the flat on my own. And I'm the victim here. Do you know what I mean? And I've lost everything, and that's hard.
I'm just painting that picture then to get it straight in my own head then. So in this relationship, like you say, for 15 years, you've got a couple of young kids. You've gone, I'm going to start this new journey. I'm going to go out there. There's an opportunity. You start seeing the money coming in. Then you move out. There's many people would go, great, you've got the money. You can now go and do it. You found the opportunity to go and start this business. But would it be fair to say that the hardest challenge was the change for you, perhaps, and not normality? Obviously, the loss of that relationship, and
yeah, of course.
Even though you were, I guess, really, I hate to use the word failed, but the relationship had failed. It come to an end, but you had this huge success on the other hand.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like that at the time. It doesn't feel like a success. You're almost a victim of your success because I had the success. I then left, and then all of a sudden I'm on my own. So then you think, well, is this a success? Because this has ultimately moved me to a different county in a flat on my own and not seeing my kids every day. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. How did you snap out of that then? What methods and techniques? And again, I always think so many people are listening to your voice now and thinking that was a really difficult situation to be in. If they were in a similar or challenging situation, what things helped you to come out of that? To get out of that rut, I guess.
Well, there comes a time when the bank balance is getting very low.
Yeah.
And that's a big motivator to
sink or swim. I guess that's the phrase that we hear.
Yeah. I think so. I reached out and got some help for starters, because I do believe that it's hard to do it by yourself, and then you have to remember the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. For your kids, to make a better life for them. And you almost have to look further into the future and think to yourself, okay, well, where do I want to be? And if I want to be there, I can't be acting like I'm acting now. So I can either sit and lay on this bed for the rest of my life, and that's no good to anyone, or I can snap out of it, which is easier said than done. Go and find the support that I need. I actually listen to a lot of motivational stuff on YouTube and stuff like that, just to sort my mindset out. I still do, to be fair, probably not as much as I should, because you sort of just let it
busy
sort of yeah. But yeah, you've got to put yourself in those situations, and then further down the line, I met my partner, who I'm with now, and it's very different. She's very supportive. If I say, "Oh, I'm not sure if this is going to work," it's very much the opposite. It's like, "Well, give it a go, and let's see." Ultimately, you're never going to know. So, anybody who sits there and says business and personal life, certainly for someone who's self-employed, don't cross over. They're speaking wrong, because they do cross over. They have a big impact on each other, and you don't leave your business at home. When you get home, you don't leave your business at work, and you also don't leave your personal life at home. If something's happened at home, you're thinking about it while you're at work, and vice versa. So obviously that was a big motivation as well, was that obviously then you can, with each little step, and you see something positive happening from it, you think, okay, well, I've got to move on with my life. Where do I want to be? Okay, I want to have a partner, so let's say work on it. That's not the word phrase, is it? But you've got to put yourself in a position to find a partner if that's what you want to do. And if you want to grow the business, you've got to do those things. So, and with each little bit, you see a little bit of success. It's a bit like when I launched the driving theory workshop. You see a little bit of success, so you do a bit more, and you do a bit more, and then you feel like you're moving in the right direction. But one thing I would say is, don't be afraid to go and get help and support. Go, talk to people. You got to find the right person for you, because there's a lot of people out there that you can talk to. Some you'll feel more confident talking to than others, and I tried a few different people and different ways of dealing with things, and I wouldn't say even now I'm a finished article. I still have those moments where self-doubt creeps in, like everybody does. And I do question a lot.
Sorry, I was going to say, do you find that comes from like that traumatic experience? Do you still have those moments that you go back and think, I'm not going to ask this question because I know the answer will be X?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is maybe at the start of the year I considered shutting down the driving theory workshop, because when COVID hit, obviously the theory test centre shut, so that business scaled down, but I'd already started the social media agency, but obviously that business grew, and I thought I'm never going to take the driving theory workshop back to the level it was at. So at its peak, we would probably turn over 15, 16 grand a month, but there was a lot of messages coming in, and although we'd automated it took over my life. And certainly at one point as well, so when you're on your own in a flat and the money's going down and that, and you're running Facebook ads, it's a worry for you, because you're thinking to yourself, I'm spending this money out. I was very much, checking, have we sold anything? Have we sold it every 10 minutes? Have we sold anything? And it becomes too much. It consumes you. So I never took it back to where it was. I just had it as a bit of passive income, and it runs on the side, because obviously the social media marketing agency does the majority of the income now. And I thought to myself, should I just shut it down? I don't need it. But something says I can't, because I don't want it to feel like it's been shut down because of it wasn't a success. And that is my mindset from the past. You'll never make it work. I've shut the business down. Told you so.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? So
I guess because that link is still there from you started it back in that relationship, it's still there now.
Yeah.
I think we can clearly say it was a success.
Yeah.
We can clearly say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've done about just over £500,000 worth of sales from it. The plan was only ever to do £200 a month. So that to give me an extra day off when my son had been born, so I could spend the time with my kids, because I was working 6 days a week as a driving instructor. That was the plan, £200 a month. And we did that in month one, and then like I say, we did about £500,000. But there is still, I will still sit there and think, if I shut this business down because it's getting quieter, that means it never worked. And that still lingers there now, and we're years down the line now.
Does that creep into any other parts of your, we talked at the start of the podcast about the employees, and you're taking new people on, and actually in 4 years' time, I mean, most people tend to leave in 3-4 years anyway, but you're thinking, are they right is the role that they're doing right? Does that come into it, or is it more so the stuff that was linked to relationships back then?
I think it does. I think it pulls into every part of your life, and when I got into a new relationship, I was very protective of myself. I would question everything too far. Do you know what I mean? Where it'd be like, what did you say that for? Oh, you don't love me. You don't do this. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's just there's
some baggage that I've got, I guess.
Yeah, just a little thing, but you protect yourself because of what you've been through in the past, and that's hard to let the walls down, let the barriers down. And ultimately, you don't want to be a failure in any business that you run. And I think I said, being a bit of a people pleaser, like I said, you don't want to upset people. Well, I don't anyway. So, it's not nice to tell people no, or, this isn't working, you're not the right person, and things like that, because I don't want to upset people. Because it sounds a bit funny, but you almost get in a position where I want people to like me, because you worry about your own self-worth, because if that happened to me in the past, why... I want everybody to like me, type thing. And that sounds, when you say it, you think, oh no, but that's the reality of a situation.
I think for me, it's when you're talking there. So I know I don't think you know this, but one of the workshops that I run with employers and individuals and leaders is a workshop all about the masks that we wear. The leaders in disguise, the masks that we wear, and one of those is absolutely about the people pleaser mask. And my personal belief is that we wear it because we need validation because of trauma that might have happened in our life. But actually, we also do it because we think if we can please people, we can get to places faster. But what people don't realize is it can burn us out really quickly, because we are wearing a mask and I talk a lot about authenticity and the ability to be vulnerable and say that's okay. But if we're walking around, and you'll see it very often where people are the perfectionist masks that they wear, and everything that they do has got to be perfect. But that comes from a place of anxiety. We know that. That's quite a common one. And the one that where we see where everything is always okay. Well, it's not always okay. That person's pretending. But it burns us out. We become really fatigued by it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said from... And I can hear the little bits of benefit that you're hearing, where you're saying, I want to be a people pleaser. I need to be really nice to people. I've got a really good friend of mine, and he always sees the good in things and always tries to be nice to people. And I say to him, look, you can pretend to be really nice to that person and not talk about the real issue here, but actually you are creating more harm by avoiding it. And whether it's a redundancy or a friendship or whatever it might be. Can you be redundant with friends? I don't know. But, ultimately the people pleaser mask, I feel personally, is the hardest one because we are constantly trying to be friends and be the best person to everybody around us. But we just can't always win.
No. And even in the social media side, you do get clients and they'll say, can you just do this? Can you just do that? Can you just do that? And being the people pleaser, yeah. And there has to come a line where you go, hold on a minute, no, because you're putting strain on me, you're putting strain on the team, and if you're not, not willing to pay for the extra, they just want you to do the extra little task, but that extra little task is something all the time, and it's so easy to fall into that trap. And I probably shouldn't say this because we get all the clients asking for a little extra, little something extra.
You're not a people pleaser. You're really hard-faced and say no to everything.
That's it. Yeah.
We'll put that bit out.
Yeah. But yeah, you and when you've been in that situation, you do want people to like you. You do need that you need that validation. And it's working away from needing that validation, which is hard. I'm not going to say that it's an easy road to come away from. But what I will say is that it's worth it, and that it does get better with time.
And I think boundaries is probably the word that's in my head that you've learned over the years, where actually being able to say no to something, or tell someone to press that mute button and turn those, whether those voices are in your head with those negative thoughts, or they are literally your other half giving you those negative thoughts, by creating those boundaries and saying it's okay to say no to these things, and not let your clients push you for freebies on the end of it, because ultimately you will burn yourself out because you'll be doing too many hours and doing too much work. And I can hear that. Unfortunately, I've heard, obviously you've learnt it the hard way, but it's still there. Do you think then, just coming to leaders and leadership and your leadership styles, do you think that you must see so many clients that you talk to and leaders around you when you're out networking and talking to others in your sector? Do you think that there is a stigma with leaders and mental health? Yeah,
I do. Everyone wants to portray the image that everything's rosy, and everybody no one walks into a networking room and's probably truly honest. They don't want to say, business isn't doing great at the minute. They'll
Especially
go,
men,
business
as well.
Yeah, business is great. Yeah, and booming. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise they're thinking, that person's going to have a negative thought of me. They'll probably think I'm not very good. Therefore, they won't use me for the service that I offer. So people aren't open and honest because they want to portray something that's not real at the end of the day, because they, of the stigma or the fact that they think that it's going to damage their reputation if they say something.
But actually, it's normal. Especially guys are worse at it, aren't they?
Yeah.
We are the worst people to admit that we're having a bad time. Relationship. I'm sure at the time there's several boxes you can tick, but one of those is people that are going for relationship breakups. No matter what the reason is, that happens unfortunately a lot in 2024, and that is just a normal thing that happens to normal people. Whether male, female, whatever the situation, that is just something that happens to Joe Bloggs, that you might be walking past on the way back to the car later that is happening in their life. And I think we do, as men, struggle to talk about our emotions and admit that defeat, that actually we are struggling or we are having a bad month. But it doesn't mean that you're rubbish, does it? It just means that, like you said, look at the success that you've had, £500,000 of sales through the driving theory business. That wasn't a failure. But you're like, ultimately you could say, oh yeah, sales are a bit quiet this month, Gary. Oh yeah, we've had a bit of a quiet year. Yeah, you probably have. There could be any reason, I guess.
Yeah, and you do have to look at the successes and look at how far you've come, ultimately, and think back. There's a post that goes around on Facebook that says, about the place you are now. If you something like if 2 years ago you'd be really happy with where you are now. So like celebrate that at the end of the day. Yeah. But people aren't. They're always looking for the next thing.
Next iteration, the next level up, I guess.
Which is fine, there's nothing wrong with wanting to progress and wanting to move forward and looking ahead, but you've also got to reflect back. And I'm guilty of that. I don't do that enough. I don't celebrate enough of what we have achieved. And I think there's probably a lot of business owners that don't celebrate enough of what they've done. They're just too busy looking for the next thing.
Let me ask you that question then. What's your proudest moment in the last 6 or 7 years in your social media business?
In the social media business?
Or many others, but we'll go with that one for now. I can hear you go. I've got plenty of them. Hopefully.
Yeah, so in the social media business, there's one client that I think it's not about how much money you make from the ad, for example, because you could make a large corporate a lot of money, but it means nothing to them. Yeah. It's when it's the personal story. The one I always think of is there was a children's wear business. They had a shop and sold a bit on Facebook. The ads weren't profitable. They were doing about 11 grand, something like that, a month. And they're obviously paying for the shop, paying for the goods, stuff like that, and their ads weren't profitable. And we took them on. We scaled down the ad spend initially, and then got it working, and then scaled it back up. And now we've probably been working with them about 18 months or so. They do about 25 grand a week, and they haven't got a shop anymore.
Oh wow!
So they purely work online. They don't, they shut the shop down because the footfall wasn't there, and they've got a warehouse. Then they moved to a bigger warehouse, and now they're looking for a bigger warehouse.
That's amazing.
And and it's only a small sort of. It was just one lady. Her husband used to dip in and help a bit after his work. Now she's recruited a couple of people in her family. He doesn't have to finish his job and go and work there anymore, so there's less stress for him on that side as well. And that's life-changing for them.
Yeah.
Yet that monetary figure to a large corporate would be nothing, or you could even do a massive amount with a large corporate, but, they don't. Even the managing director, he doesn't own it. And it's nice, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't mean the same to them. That's life-changing for them.
Sounds like you've been on that journey with them as well, seeing the store and trying to get more sales into going, we don't need the store anymore. I say I bet you feel like that sometimes. We don't need this. Yeah, and,
that hearing that, and, we speak to them, and I speak to them every couple of weeks. And like I say, it's just that life change, the fact he doesn't have to come home from work and go and help her now so he can relax a bit himself, and it's just took the pressure away from them.
Music to
now they've got pressure of having to fulfill all the orders. That's a nice problem to have.
We had a guest on not so long ago that does fulfillment. We can get them in touch and we can sort that out. We could get Trent on that as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. I think it's it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And music to my ears that you're talking about someone that can then have a bit more time out and hire a couple of members of staff so they can actually stop making themselves redundant, and they can be running a lovely business and go and sit on the beach somewhere and enjoy it.
I always say, as self-employed people, you lay awake worrying at night. You're either worrying that you're too quiet or worrying you're too busy. And I know which one I'd rather be worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to get that balance. Well, the next question I was going to ask you is around about stress and actually managing that. So you've tied that in really, really nicely for me, because you talked about 150 different businesses. I know you've got a team around you, and that's great. how do you manage stress? Because you look like a really chilled out guy, and you know,
I'm not sure my wife would agree with.
Well, you look really chilled out right now, so I'm doing my job.
I'm not working. I'm talking. So
we're always working.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Certainly up until recently, I didn't really take masses of time for myself. So recently, I did rejoin the gym, things like that, to give a bit. You've got to fit those things in, because if you don't fit them in, you'll fit other stuff in instead. You'll make your work fit that amount of time. Whereas if you go to the gym, you've got less hours, but you still make it fit. And I am, I'm still guilty of this. So I'm not going to be preaching that, I'm the finished article. But you have got to make time for yourself, and do the things that you want to do. Because if you don't, then work and life will take over, and ultimately you can have all the money in the world, but if you just sat at your desk all day, it's not worth it. Do you know what I mean? So I spend time with my kids, and the benefit is I can top heavy my week, so I know that if I can work a bit longer at the start of the week, so that I can, on a Thursday or Friday, I can finish at 1:30, drive over, pick the kids up from school, spend that time with them. It doesn't always work out like that. That sometimes things happen with work that you do have to deal with, but it means that I have got that I can do. Whereas, if I was employed elsewhere, I could probably have to work. I'd have to go to a kids club or something like that. So
I guess it's that flexibility on time as well, isn't it? So, we've already said about the fact that companies are more flexible in 2024 versus where they were.
Yeah.
And being able to flex and drop the kids off, pick them up, whatever it might be. It sounds like you're doing that because you're in control, but it sounds like you've also opened that up fairly to the team as well. I appreciate there are, again, boundaries and rules, etc. that go around it. But I think what I'm hearing there is you're saying, well, if I can do the work and get that work done, then I can finish a little bit early here and then go to the gym and work on you.
Yeah.
Work on clients and work on everyone else. We're rubbish for looking after ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, and like I say, I'm no finished article, but we certainly, we do have the flexibility with the team. If they need to go and pick the kids up from school, and then, or the nativity or something like that, they want to go and watch it. They'll just go, "Oh, do you mind if I do a bit extra here?" And then I go and do that. And as long as the work's done on time, we can work around things. It doesn't matter to me whether they write somebody's posts at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. As long as it's done by the deadline of when we need it for, doesn't actually matter. And again, I do spend all my day on social media, but there's that thing about there's a really powerful video actually that I've seen, and it relates to kids, and it was just showing the kids' faces light up when they see their parent in the audience. So they're like looking around and that, and then when they spot their parent there, and the face just lights up, and there's loads of clips, very like short snippets, very quickly, and you just think to yourself, you're not going to get that time back. So you do your work around those situations, because there's not going to be a nativity every day. There's one a year or whatever. So and other events, sports days and things like that, you're not going to get to see that all the time. They're going to grow up. So I think you've got to have that flexibility, and if you give them a little, they'll give you back because they respect you. Ultimately they want to do a good job because they want to stay in that job, because if it's a benefit to them as well, so then they should, hopefully, you would hope, give a little back. And so if you need something and you're like, oh, I really need this doing and I need it doing today, I'll just do a bit extra for you. And then you say, okay, well, you can take a bit of time off on Friday or something like that. And it's everything's about give and take.
Yeah, I was just thinking of another video that I've seen where it's a dad, I think it is, on the working at his desk at home or in a home office, and the kids coming in going, "Dad, can I just have no, go away? Dad, can I just have it? No, go away." And ultimately that child just thinks, I'll just get on with it then. And my dad's always working and I never get to see him and I never spend time with him. And I think, I think of the word purpose, and we're doing it for a reason. We're not doing it to, okay, yes, we are, and we'd always say it to clients, we are doing it because that's what we're contractually obliged, and we morally as well, we want to do well and look after those clients. But at the end of the day, you've got a business not because you fancy having a go and just have a bit of fun with it. You're doing it to pay for the life that you can go and spend time with your family and friends, or go and do that, go and learn that one thing that you've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, or go and do dancing. So many couples go and learn how to go and dance together, don't they, these days? And it's that actually that's why you do what you do. And unfortunately, and I think you kind of mentioned it when you talked about social media, the driving theory business, it can just grow and grow and grow into something that's a bit uncontrollable, and then we forget what's important to us.
Yeah, and that business at that time, because I didn't have a lot of money in the bank at that time, we were getting all those messages. It literally consumed my life. It was, we live in a world where things are 24/7, so people will message, they see an advert on Facebook, they click it, they send you a message. And I was very much, I'll reply. If I'm awake, I'm replying. When me and my wife used to go away somewhere, I used to have to stop every hour. We used to park up, and I used to answer 20 to 25 messages, and then we'd get back in the car and drive another hour. It's like, and
a nice problem to have, but not great when you're trying to balance family, I guess.
Yeah. So, and it just becomes too much, because you never get downtime, because it's a 24/7 business. People messaging you on Christmas Day. You don't want to switch the ads off because I needed the income to be coming in. You don't want to ignore people because you think, well, they'll go elsewhere.
Would you do anything differently now then, in looking back? Because I can hear like the amount of inquiries that you're dealing with, even on Christmas Day. What one thing might you change?
Probably automate it a lot sooner.
Yeah. That bright idea, you're thinking, crikey, I wish I'd done that a lot earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a difficult situation because of the because I'd been through what I'd been through, and the money was tight. Then would I do anything different? I didn't have the funds to do anything different, so it's hard to say. Yeah, probably automate it. But
ideally, if you had the money, you might have outsourced it to a VA or someone like that might answer those questions for you.
But I didn't have the funds at that time, so I needed. And everything fell on me. I had a flat to pay for, and and maintenance to pay, and suddenly you're not in a family unit where there's two incomes coming in. It's all reliant on you. So I didn't have any money to outsource it to anyone else, or I needed that. So automation's brilliant. Like you can get ManyChat to answer all the messages for you. So that's what we did, and that was I think we pay about 40-50 quid for that, and it answers like 30,000 messages. It's like,
I was going to get really geeky then and start talking about it, but I won't. I'll save our audience from that. But yes, I've seen that tool, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is really good.
Yeah, you're definitely the guy to know if you're thinking, how do I even control this level? But I don't even know if that was around back then, but certainly it's a great tool. And
I think the thing I probably would change is, because I was so worried about the sales, because everything seemed to fall just on this, that I was constantly checking. I was constantly refreshing my emails. Have we had another sale? Because we were spending £250 a day on ads at that point. You almost start every day on minus 250.
Yeah.
And then you've got to sell £250 worth before you start making any profit. Now, the thing with that business is majority of sales come in the evening because people are at work, they're at college. So you probably break even about 8-9 o'clock at night. So you're sitting there at 6-7 o'clock thinking, still £150 short here, or you've done no sales, and then all of a sudden you'll get a load of sales come in all in the evening. You're like, oh, thank goodness, like we've got through. And the next minute it ticks to midnight and you're minus 250 again. Do you know what I mean? And when you've got no reserves, that's difficult. But you also end up in a vicious cycle. The more you check it, the more you keep checking it. So sometimes you just need to step away and trust the process a little bit.
A kind of similarity to I've had trouble sleeping here and there, and don't look at your clock halfway through the night because it'll be 1 o'clock. The next time you look at it, it'll be 1:30. Then you look at it, it'll be 35 minutes past 1. So just trust in the process, I guess. And
there was a few times where it would really get in my head, but it was at those times that I knew that I needed to go out but leave the phone at home, because if you go out, and I remember there was one day on the weekend, I think we went to like a Christmas market or something like that. And I know if I take my phone, I'm just walking around the Christmas market refreshing it. Whereas if you've not got it in front of you, you deal with it when you get home. There's nothing you can do about it. Ultimately, there's nothing you can do about it anyway, even when you are refreshing it, because the sale's not going to drop in because I've refreshed it.
I can hear how are you laughing and the humour of it now, but at the time,
no, at the time
like,
it was
it's everything, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, and that was like the darkest time, I would say, because it was just a vicious circle, and it was every day. It would just. So, which is why I say to people, don't overstretch yourself with your ads budget, thinking you've got to spend that thousands of pounds. Just start on £5 a day. Let's see some profit for £5 a day first. Then we'll reinvest the profit, because then you're not worrying so much. And I think that story resonates with a lot of our clients. There's a lot of people out there that go to marketing agencies and they've never ran the ads themselves. And I think the fact that I've been there and I've done it, and I can understand where I can understand why they worry, why they're messaging you after 10 hours saying, I've not sold anything yet. And you say, it's fine. Whereas if they go to another agency, they're like, oh, God, so-and-so's moaning about it. And yes, you've got to leave it. You've got to give it some time to work. But I come from a place of experience where I say, look, I know how you feel. Okay, but it will work. Just trust it. We'll sort it and turn it around. And I think that resonates with people because we've been there and done it and not just read a book. And
I'm just going to shift the gear a little bit if I can, because you've got some really good knowledge here and I'm going to try and capture some of it. Mm-hmm. You've done so many different social media strategies and ran so many accounts. What one thing as a small business owner do we need to be focusing on right now in social media? What one thing can I be doing?
Well, the biggest thing is always consistency with anything. You can't post for a week and expect to see results and then give up. You can't post for a month and think that you're going to change the world with it. It's not going to happen. So you got to stay consistent. But when I say consistent, I don't just mean in the volume of posts, but I mean in who you are as well. Don't try and look at what everybody else is doing and try and replicate them. Be consistent in your tone, your authenticity, and then the amount of times that you're posting. But consistency is ultimately the key thing, because if you don't stick with stuff, it's never gonna work.
The one thing that I always hear people saying to me is, I can't consistently do this. I will burn myself out having to post twice a day every day or once a day. How do people manage that?
You make the time for the stuff that you want at the end of the day. So you have to think, what are you wanting to achieve and how are you going to get there? So, marketing is one of the biggest priorities that you should have as your business, because you could be the best accountant in the world, but if no one knows who you are, then you ain't going to get any work, because no one knows who you are. So, when we are, starting in a business, you can be, you know how to be a plumber, but at the same time, you've suddenly got to be the accountant, the marketer, the absolute, jack of all trades. And so you've got to market your business, and ultimately no one's going to market it better than you are. But it's that time, isn't it? At the end of the day, we haven't got time to do everything ourselves. You can tell your story better than anybody else. I can tell my story better than anyone would ever be able to tell it. Yes, other people might have a strategy or be able to run the ads and things, but ultimately it's still your story, and
keep telling that message consistently, I guess.
And then people worry, I'm posting too much. People will get sick and tired. I mean, how many times, we hear the question, how many times a day can I post or should I post? And they'll say, but, I'll just post once a week because people will get bored of me. And it's like, once a week will get lost. Like, no one's going to see it. And ultimately, no one minds how many times you post as long as you add value. So if I post a social media tip and you go away and use it and it enhances your business, you don't mind if I post another one later that day. What you do mind is if I'm asking you if you like jam or cream on your scone first, or which meat you had with your roasting, because then you become irrelevant and you're just clogging up space. You're more noise on social media. So as long as you've got something valuable to say, it's value, and then quantity comes off the back of that. So if you can put lots of ultimately, the more times you post, as long as it's good value, the more work you'll get because you've got more visibility.
I like it. I'm going to ask you some really fast, a couple of rapid fire questions if I can do. Don't worry, unfortunately, there's no prize at the end of it.
Is it jam or cream on my scone first?
Do you know, I'm just going to answer that. I go diversity. I'm a people pleaser maybe in this sense.
Right.
I chop it in half and I put jam and cream on one side and then put cream and jam on the other.
Right.
And I think,
You've done both.
Best bit of both worlds, then, aren't you? People don't realise that, but there we are. I'll move away from that very quickly for some relevancy. But yeah, a few sort of rapid fire questions. We can get some good quick takeaways if we can do. Mm-hmm. So, what one thing? Start this one again. What one thing could every business owner stop doing in their marketing? So I've asked you what one thing they could focus on. What should they stop doing? Maybe irrelevant.
Posting the irrelevant content that gets fake engagement. So, people sit there and think, yes, engagement's important for social media, and we'll go back to the jam and cream thing, you get a lot of people comment on it. Yes, you get engagement. So those people see your post, but they're going to scroll past it when they've not got much time because they're going to think it's irrelevant. Oh, it's just another drivel post from so-and-so, so I'll just scroll past it. Get real engagement. Don't be afraid to ask a question on social media, but make it relevant to your business. It's that irrelevancy, fake, which garners fake engagement, which is a vanity metric at the end of the day. Because if it's, you're not going to get any sales or people to know who you are based off a jam and cream question.
Good advice. What's the best advice you've ever been given or received?
Trust the process. Trust the process. Yeah, I think so.
I like it. Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. People give up too quickly, don't they?
And don't get me wrong, there's a time when you do need to give up on certain things. But at the same time, you've got to know that you have tried different things. We'll split test ads. We could try one ad creative and try it and it not work, but sometimes a very, very quick story with my driving theory course, I tweaked one sentence, the very first headline sentence of an ad. We went from selling courses at about £3.50 a conversion to £1.50 in a conversion. We kept the same image, the same word, and it was one sentence change. So it goes to show that just a very small little tweak can make a big difference. So never be happy with the results that you get and always look for improvement. But always be seeing where you can make those improvements.
Interesting. What advice would you give to men who are struggling to open up about their mental health?
Just seek some help. Don't be afraid to seek some help. No one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to criticize you. No one's going to think any less of you. You think that they will. A lot of people think that, my mates will just laugh at me down the pub. And if they do, then no, they truly the friends that you want. But no, get some help because it's hard to do it on your own.
Brilliant. Got two more. Books and resources. Are you a reading guide? You sound like you are. You go out there and learn. What books should I be reading as an entrepreneur? It doesn't have to be marketing. Any good books you've read recently?
So my favourite book is related to marketing. So it's They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, which is very much links in with social media, but he does it with blog writing. So it's very much whatever your customers ask you, that's what you write about in your blogs and things. So whenever you're on the phone with a client or potential client or someone comments on your post, whatever so people will say to me, how much do I need on ad spend? How much? And I think that's a piece of content. That's because there's so many other people that won't ask the question. So the whole book is based around, if someone asks you, that is your piece of content. You just answer, rather than sales pitching, just answer the questions that people ask you. So that is one of my favourite books on that side. And then sort of mindset wise, I can't think what it was called now.
So many out there.
Yeah,
I know the books. I can see them on my bookcase, on my bookshelf.
Yeah,
knowing what half of them are called.
I can't remember now, so I'm gonna have to leave that one. But mindset. I think mindset books are important though. It's not just all about what can you learn, because without the right mindset, you're not going to go and put it into practice. So So yeah, mix it up.
Mindset is something, you just talked about one of those books that people ask. The thing that comes up all the time when I'm talking to HR teams or the individual leaders, whether they're a business owner or leading a team, is that self-awareness, that emotional intelligence. And it's a phrase I use now, and I realize when I used to hear it, it sounded quite insulting to say, "Oh, you're emotionally intelligent," but it literally is being in the moment and acknowledging what's going on and identifying that change might need to happen. We've talked about it so much already today, or what can I do to change this, and just recognizing that. But self-awareness is something that comes up time and time again, and I think that comes down to mindset for me.
I think a lot of people read the books but then they don't put it into practice, and it does come down to mindset, and I think with mindset you've got to constantly be working on it as well. I'm not somebody who reads masses of books, and I'm certainly not somebody who'll read Harry Potter and that the storybook type. I'm very much like the educational books, mindset books, or Alex Hormozy type books where I'm learning something. More that sort of book.
So I was going to ask you how you unwind at the end of the day. Hopefully it's not reading a business book or a marketing book, which I've got to say, I listen to podcasts and business podcasts. I actually enjoy the whole thing around business. So I will read business articles and things like that because I actually enjoy it, but it's through choice. It's not through the thought of needing to. I go to the gym. I tend to go in the morning though. In the evenings, I'm a bit of a stay in and just relax. I like sport, football, Formula One, that side of things. So I just watch mind-numbingly boring Netflix series, or series on BBC iPlayer or something like that. Just sit there and just not have to think,
about anything.
Binge watch a series. I think I don't know if that's a good thing. Or get out and go and walk. I think that's always a nice thing to do when it's so bright, when the nights are closing in.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, you've got an incredible story. Not just what you've overcome, but what you've done on the back of it. Thank you so much. I think there's things that when I look down the list of things that we've spoken about, so that importance of resilience in business, I think has been particularly strong. Breaking that stigma around men's mental health. Is there any particular charities, support networks that you know of that men that are victims of domestic violence, domestic abuse that stand out? There's so many, aren't there?
Yeah, I don't, if I'm honest. I didn't use any of those services or anything myself, so I don't. But yeah, there's lots of different ones that obviously people can reach out. To be quite honest, if anybody is watching this and they just want somebody to talk to, feel free to reach out, and if someone's going through any situation that's similar, I'm more than happy to sort of just listen.
And we'll have a look in the notes, add to the notes of any charities that we think are relevant and share them with you as well. So yeah, thank you. And obviously you've given us some good marketing strategies and consistency and trust in the process. Has been brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Really appreciate it. You've really opened my mind and my mind open to everything that's going on in the world and what we can do on the back of it, and where there is opportunity where we don't always see it, and it can help us out in situations where we really don't feel like we've got any choice, particularly when we speak out. So thank you. I guess that's it for today's episode of Leaders in Disguise. If people need to look for you, so 2022 marketing.
22 marketing.
I'm doing it wrong already.
Yeah.
22 marketing.
Marketing, yeah.
Chris London.
Yep.
You'll be all over LinkedIn and...
Yeah, LinkedIn. Everywhere. Obviously, go to the website, which is www.2222marketing.co.uk. But yeah, feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And obviously, if you've enjoyed this conversation and you want to subscribe to more episodes and keep watching them, please make sure you click subscribe. I keep getting told to say that in these episodes, and I always forget. We have also got a Patreon account. So if you jump onto Patreon... Chris, do it when you get home. There is a free option on there as well, but also there's a paid option for people to support us, and ultimately we get to buy some new cushions like this that I've not even talked about on the show today. We actually are more comfortable on this couch today, and just help support us to tell stories just like yours as well. So thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me on.
You're welcome.